This is Soccer 101 with Moon and Rocchio.
All right. Welcome back to Soccer 101. Rocc, we got a few things to talk about. Last time we really didn't get to talk about some of the signings that were coming in, some of the details, and I think those are all positive things. So we're going to make this episode mostly positive.
There we go, okay.
Even though we're coming off of a loss.
It's a choice after a 4-1 loss.
Yeah, so we'll start with the 4-1 loss. You know what? No, actually, I'm going to start with this. So we talked a little bit last week about Coach Carnell. I was sweating my butt off in Alabama. I had no information in front of me. It was just going on emotions. I probably didn't articulate very well, but, in review, thinking about it for a week and kind of watching last week, I will say that I do think it's a little bit more harsh than I probably initially my opinion is that the firing of Carnell was probably a bit more harsh than initially thought. But I will say this. It had to have come because, like the point's been made that we just gave him an extension a few months ago. And, a lot of times people are like, you got to give it time. You got to, commit to something, and you're playing towards the future, and you're supposed to be planning towards the future. I got to think, dude, he must have lost the dressing room in a way. He must have lost whether it's, equity or trust in the ownership group when it came to how the Adeniran stuff was handled and the benching of players and that kind of stuff. Do you have any other takes now that multiple days have passed and we've been able to kind of sit on this and put it in the past a little bit as to anything that we maybe didn't touch on or you didn't get to articulate? Because I'm thinking man, it was really harsh, way harsher than I thought, and it has to be, something has to have weighted it to have made this decision, right?
I really do think this comes down to a change in expectations because of the success of season one and them now saying we need to be a playoff team. And especially after, considering our last episode was between the San Jose win and then the 4-1 loss, after watching them against a much more talented team in the Rapids than the Earthquakes, it just drove home to me, if anything, that Bradley Carnell was working with a roster that was constantly injured and even at full strength wasn't close to being the most talented roster in the Western Conference. And that was driven home to me during the 4-1 loss to the Rapids when, again, the interim head coach was let down, I think, at times by simply not being able to play a squad that was as talented as the team on the other side. And I thought that was apparent. And again, I'm not saying you don't. You're right. You were 100% right. And Gigliani and Lutz are 100% correct that you had to make this move to salvage this season. My disagreement is about the wider scope. And my disagreement is more about that I disagree with how to approach the wider scope. And I'm surprised that a team that talks so much about a 5 or 6 year plan changed, at least in my opinion, seems to have changed the expectations of that 5-year scope so quickly without then backing up those changes of expectations with a marketed improvement in the roster within the exact same time frame. But you change the expectations, you have to then follow up with that decision, which is the coach wasn't going to get you there anymore. And you had to make that change.
Well, that's what's so interesting to me is the follow-up. It's one or two things to me. And I totally agree with you. I understand. Listen, a lot of these players that we expected more out of, the Parkers, the Klaus, even some in the midfield. And, of course, like you said, most of our players that we expected are underperforming right now.
But it's not about underperforming as much as it is about players not being available. But I'm saying it's not just about underperforming. It is like a huge chunk of this
I was getting there.
A lack of availability.
I was totally getting there, but dude, there is no doubt that Parker, Klaus, and maybe two other players that should be stepping up further are just not doing it, and they're underperforming. Then compound that with Pompeiu's out, and Leuven gets hurt, and maybe Berkey's hurt. all these different things
They should be
have
back.
made the field product difficult. I understand that, but when it comes to dropping a coach after an extension, like you said, with the last 3 years have been talk about a 5 to 6 year plan. One of two things is happening, and it's either again he lost some equity or trust with the higher ups because of how the dressing room was going. So that one I can understand, you know. So I got to think it's something like that, or they had some plan of replacement, which I have yet to see. I'm really curious as to see what the heck happens these next couple weeks or months. Like, dude, just dropping a guy after you gave an extension, who are you going to bring in here? Who are you planning on bringing in here? And, of course, there's some giant names that are available out there. I just don't know if you have the lures to bring them to St. Louis or the MLS. But, man, it's curious. And I didn't want to spend too much time on it, but I didn't get to really, think through or articulate too much on the last episode. And it's just got me thinking, man, interesting scenario we found ourselves in. And as fans that don't know, it's like, please show us that there's a plan here.
I still think there's a plan. And again, I think we're dealing with a situation that just has variables coming from every which way. Obviously, I think the locker room is going to factor in. You don't fire a coach midseason without the locker room factoring in addition to results factoring in and all those other things. And again, I don't know how much this changed things, but the fact that there is one piece of information which I think is crucial as we talk about a 5-6 year plan and that plan changing, which is there is a new decision maker in the front office that wasn't there when they sculpted out that 5-year plan on day one. And now there's a new guy in the organization who's going to impact decision making. And obviously Diego Gigliani has an incredible resume, and I think it's going to be better for the organization. And I'm not saying that he changed it in a worse way. I'm just saying that him coming in probably changed parts of those plans, because you don't bring in a guy like that without bringing him in to make an impact on your front office and what you're doing as an organization. And so that plan obviously has had changes in the last 6, 12, and 18 months. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just think that's why I had questions from the get-go.
Yeah, well, let's move on to results, which we did not get this last weekend. In Colorado, St. Louis City SC fell 4-1 to the freaking Rapids, they're fourth place.
They're good now.
They're a good team. They figured it out.
Rapids.
But I'll tell you what, holy crap, the first goal, 6th minute. Dude, our defense leaves so much to be desired from a fan's perspective. And if I were any MLS team right now, I would be so excited to play St. Louis, because they look like a poor college team in the defense. And, I'm going there again, but I mean, just go back and watch the highlights. 7 minutes of highlights, and it is just defensive.
The first goal wasn't even the one.
Garble.
Yeah, the first goal isn't even the one that makes me want to just the second goal is by the Rapids was referred to by the broadcaster as shambolic defending.
Shambolic.
And honestly,
Shambolic.
perfect description. The second goal bothers me so much more, because the first goal, which is, and I like to make comparisons to other sports because we do like to get new fans in, and so the first goal is 100% like a basketball play, where because you turn the ball over as an offense in a bad spot, the other offense gets a really easy basket. That's 100% what the first goal is. It's not necessarily terrible defending. Just give me a moment.
Yes, it is.
It's not as much terrible defending as defenders making bad plays, because the turnover in the attacking third was by Akil Watts, who then doesn't run back on defense. Michael Wenzel then tries to step up to stop the attack, and here's the thing about that. As much as he misplayed that, and because he steps up to make the play and he doesn't get the ball, they make the ball behind him wide open greenery all day long. Here's the thing. You have to criticize him for that play, but you also have to realize that there are 6 other attacks during that game, and I broke it down, and I'm not BSing about that. There's 6 other attacks in that game where Michael Wenzel steps up and makes a tackle and gets the ball and then shuts down an attack by the Rapids throughout that entire game. And he had a bad game. I'm not going to lie about that. And that was a bad play by him. But my point is that him stepping up like that and he should step up to try to make that stop because of the system, the way they're trying to play that play. But he botches it, and they get an easy one. So I'm not as mad about the first one. The second one is 100%. You got both feet in front of you. There's all 4 defenders in a line, and you somehow let them walk in past you. That's what happens on the first, second, and third goals. All 3 of the last 3 goals are so much worse than the first one. I'd be happy to complain about all 3 of those all day long. Those were terrible goals.
You're right. The second was so embarrassing that it should be erased. Whoever has the footage, like, just drop it and hope that people forget that you deleted it.
I've watched it 4 times. You can't delete it out of my brain.
It's such a joke.
So
the second goal was such a joke. The third goal, in the first 6 seconds or maybe 5 seconds of like really key moments for the Rapids in the final third, they had 6 guys ahead of our last defenders -2. So like we had only 2 guys behind 6 guys.
And then the worst part is in the fourth goal. The fourth goal, they have 2 guys in a pocket where City has 4, and then they somehow spring a perfect pass from A to B through all 4 City defenders, and it's like every other part of the game was you getting dog walked by 5 guys when you only had 4, and then the worst goal of the game is you getting beat when they only had 2 against your 4. Every which possible way a defense can get beat, the City defense got beat by the Rapids.
Yeah, they really did, and you're right about the first one, but I will disagree with you that was an individual mistake that should not have been made because it doesn't matter how you're playing it. You don't go after that ball.
Up?
Yeah, you don't step up. There was no need to step up for that ball when he had full vision as a defender, and you have a midfielder that's coming back, or I forget who it was, but you have a guy who's almost keeping pace with him that can at least contain the pressure. It's about containment in this issue. When you're on the back foot like that, you must contain and control. Wait for a misstep. Wait for a missed touch. You don't dive in on that ball when the opportunity for the next guy that you're supposed to be having is going to have a breakaway. And dude, he just handed it to him.
Your issue is with the scheme and not Wenzel on that play.
Nope. My issue is the choice. He made a bad choice. That was bad defending.
And that's fair. And I asked Hackworth about that in today's press conference on Thursday, and he pretty much said it comes down to the decisions of the defenders. So you're right. It does come down to the decisions of the defenders. But at the same time, and this kind of goes back to my opening point, I don't wish to harp back with Carnell, but still, it goes back to, though, that you're playing this scheme and then you're playing it with a City 2 guy who you've given a first-team contract this year, and he's playing next to Akil Watts, who's being asked to play 5 different positions this season. And so Watts makes a mistake with a turnover. Watts isn't getting back on defense. And then Wenzel, yes, he makes the wrong decision, but I'm saying is the bigger issue there is them turning it over in the offensive third, them having no support in the midfield, Johnny Klein getting caught out making a counter press that he probably shouldn't have made, and then them having all that space to open in the midfield. And then Wenzel's maybe even he does the calculation because you can stop the play right there, and maybe he makes the calculation and says we're about to be 4-on-3. So I got to stop them because we're gonna be a man. They're gonna have an advantage on us for 40 yards between midfield and the goal line. So or the box, I should say. And so maybe he's making the decision saying, if I can jump up and stop it now, it is a better play. Or more so than that, if I can jump up this and maybe get a foul called and get a stoppage, it's a better play as well. He made a lot of those plays where he jumped up and stopped things. He got beat on a lot of them. But if you go back and you watch that game and you go through every single defensive play, and I did that, there's a lot of attacks where it was about to be 4 Rapids on 3 City defenders, where Michael Wenzel or Akil Watts or Totland later on in the game jumps up and makes a risky tackle that erases a play that we're not talking about today because they took the risk. And I understand that. And you have to focus on the plays that go wrong, but you have to look at them in the totality of every single other play. Which again, I'm not saying you take anything away from him there. I'm not saying you excuse it, but it's why I think the other 3 goals are worse than the first goal. That's my overall point. They're all bad, Moon. I'm just saying
totally agree.
If we had to focus on the last 3 goals are all shambolic defending. I love that description.
I totally agree, but there is no excuse for that poor play. Right. There's a time for risk, and listen, I love risky play. I was a risky player as far as that goes, but that was a horrible decision, and here's where it really hurts you, and maybe evens it out with why it was close to as bad as those other ones, is because this team has no confidence in his defense right now. Berkey is pissed all the time. Everybody is just like hoping that our defense holds, and to give it up in the sixth minute because of a really dumb choice as a basic defender. That really hurts the team going down the line. And dude, when a team comes in and scores 2 or 3 like that with shambolic defending, it's a free-for-all. They feel like they're at the carnival. Now they're going to try anything and everything, including that fourth one where they're just threading a ball through to see if it gets through. And what do you know, it does. And now we got a fourth goal. Like, again, if I was playing in the MLS right now, I would be so stoked. It would be like a party going to City Park because I get to play City, who hasn't shown any sort of defensive intelligence at all this year. And I'm not going to put it on individual players, but what I'm going to say is, and I hate to sound boring or Jose Mourinho style here, but dude, somebody spend some freaking money and bring in some high IQ. I don't care if the guy's 50 years old. Just bring somebody that is going to be absolutely demanding of respect, not only from the opponents, but from the back line, who people are not going to want to let down. Not going to want to make stupid decisions.
This system requires you to run a lot. Please do not sign a 50-year-old defender. It will go very poorly.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like Chiellini and those kind of things that were those guys were brought over, and you're like, how the hell is this guy going to affect anything?
That's the problem. They have a vocalized aggressive defender on the team already, and he gets put in bad positions where he has to cover 40 yards. And that's not his style, and it wouldn't be any of those guys that you just mentioned style either. Those guys would hate covering that much ground.
You're missing the point. I'm not talking about covering ground. I'm talking about people that run the ship. The back line is like a ship. The goalie is like its own thing. You know what I'm saying? And I hate to say it, but in like true defender sense, these are strange people that are kind of in their own little clique, and they should be. They should be in their own. They should be in their own gang, dude. And there should be this crazy leader, maybe not even the leader of the team, but the leader of the defense, that his fellow defensemen don't want to let this guy down, because he's either gonna be the dad style that he ignores you for the next couple training sessions, or he's a yeller. I don't know what it is, but we're
watching different Tim Parkers.
I'm not sold on it being good enough.
He is that guy in training, though. And
I don't know that, and I'm not seeing that on the field.
Any other veteran who's isn't gonna be able to run this system is demanding, and it's not changing. That's the other thing. You might not like it, but it's not changing. So the realities of the situation are: find me another guy who has 10 years under his belt who's willing to run this much.
Okay, again, I'm not even talking about that. He seems like a nice guy, and maybe he is like the boss of the back line, but like. He's a good player and a nice guy, but I'm talking about we just need something more. We just need something more.
You know what they're bringing in. The additions have been made. Let's get excited about those. We said we were going to be positive. 2 of the 3 additions are officially in training and working with the team. Today was Jake Girdwood-Reich's first day training with the team. We know that Cedric Tuechert has been training with the team for a little bit. John Hackworth said he's questioning everyone he can around the organization about when they can get Marcel Hartel here in training as well. So 2 of the 3 additions are already here. We know about the other third name. So help is on its way, and maybe they can make a run, post-Leagues Cup.
Yeah, help is on its way. I do think it'll make a big difference. Do you see those 3 players like making a real noticeable difference on the field immediately?
Yeah, I think so, because I think Joachim Nielsen is your best center back right now. And I think, to your point, I think that Tim Parker is a great leader for this team. But it is such a demanding system that asks their center backs to cover so much ground that having somebody like Girdwood-Reich, who has played the midfield before as well as playing center back, tells me this guy can range, this guy can hoof it, this guy can cover the 5.5 miles that you have to cover even playing center back in this system. So I think there's a good chance that Girdwood-Reich makes an impact. And just look at the center back system. Look at all the injuries you've had and how often you've had to shift out your center backs this season. He's going to make an impact no matter what. I think there's a good chance him and Nielsen could be your starting center back pairing for some crucial games, maybe even a wild card game if you are able to make it that far. And then the other ones, I think undoubtedly they're going to be impact players. I think Nukvi Thorson is showing a lot more right now that he's getting minutes. But he's not a clinical finisher. He's not finishing at the rate you want him to. So good winger kind of production right now without Celio Pompeu. But Cedric Tuechert, you want to get him in the middle. You want to get a 9. We've kind of gone through his stats where, he's definitely a finisher, not necessarily a huge passer. He's a good dribbler, so, get it to him, let him do what he wants to do. And then you have Marcel Hartel, who, again, we talked about being a perfect link between really any striker you have and Edward Leuven, because he can score and he can play make. So if he's out there with Klaus, he's a perfect link up in 1-2s. On both ends with João Klaus. At the same time, if you have Klaus struggling a little bit more, if Klaus is one of those games where he's playing more in the midfield as a false nine, he's getting back, well, then Edward Leuven can put it over the top, and Marcel Hartel, if he gets that ball in the box, he can finish it just as strong as he can, put the ball in the box himself. So, I mean, these guys fit perfectly, and I think they're going to make impacts right off the bat, especially because a guy like Tuechert's been here for so long. Girdwood-Reich's now getting into the system where he's going to be here for a week before the first game he technically can play on July 20th, but he'll be here for a month and getting real game time before that, including Leagues Cups games. Obviously, that's why Hackworth wants to get Hartel here, is because he wants to have him hit the ground running. Right now, it's looking like he won't be available for that July 20th game against Sporting KC, like it looks like Tuechert and Reich would be available. So that's unfortunate, but it's the reality of getting guys in for the transfer window. These guys are going to make an impact, no doubt about it.
Yeah, they'll make an impact. I'm really interested because I've seen the stats. I've seen a couple of highlight things from all these guys. I'm excited to see them on the field, but I'm really hoping, and again, I'm going to hammer down on this point, I'm really hoping that one of them really brings, or all of them really bring personality. I think that's what we're missing. What I'm talking about when I say like a leader in the backfield or whatever, I'm talking about a personality that just people do not want to let down. And no, you know what? I take that back. Not a personality that people don't want to let down. A personality that people refuse to let down. I refuse to let this guy next to me down.
Berkey isn't that guy?
Listen, dude, I think Berkey was that guy and could be that guy, but he's so pissed and has been so let down that they are just like past it. I don't think they're you know what I think? I think that they're worried that Berkey wants to leave. I think that's what they're worried about.
Why are people thinking about that right now? Why is that a thing?
Because that's the panic in everybody's mind is, oh my God, can you guys at least do this for Berkey's sake? Can you run? Can you not get beat and jog back for Berkey's sake? For God's sakes, you've made this guy save 40% of shots that never should have happened.
Yeah, I'm sure he's liking the workout after being a backup for 10 years at Dortmund.
Hey, listen,
jeez,
he doesn't like that.
I'm sure he loves playing I'm sure he loves being the captain of a team, a leader of a team. Come on.
Sure. He doesn't like stats.
People who really think that because he gets a lot of shots against him and because they're not winning as much as last year, that Berkey's going to mutiny against the organization. I've heard rumblings of it this entire season, and I don't know what people are coming from. Like these guys
it's
are
just worried.
These guys are competitive. These guys are hard workers. These guys are warriors. They're not this soft. They're not they are not this light. They don't need somebody else to tell them I gotta play. These guys care about having careers for the next 10 years. I think the idea that they need to find somebody else on the team to play for, I want guys who play for themselves. I want guys who say, I need to play because I need to prove it to myself that I'm the best player out there. I'm not saying like the selfish way of play for yourself, but I'm saying you need to be a self-motivator in every way, shape, and form. These guys aren't here because they're not self-motivators. They're not. They got up at 4:30 a.m. to go on workouts since they were 6 years old. These guys are self-motivators. They don't.
They didn't do it to lose.
That. I'm sure they didn't, but the other teams getting paid a lot of money too.
This guy's like the highest paid goalie and maybe the one or the either the best or the second best goalie in the league. You think Gigi Buffon would have been okay playing for Monza or somebody in Serie A? Like what are you, crazy? Of course it matters. And you know what else matters to these kind of guys, especially now that they have a chance to be on the world stage as a starter, is goals against. And if their goals against number keeps
I love Roman Berkey to death, but did you just compare Roman Berkey to Gigi Buffon?
Well, as far as leagues and wanting to win and wanting to be on a team that wins, of course.
One guy's a world legend at the top of his game.
And the other one's the highest paid MLS keeper.
Okay, that's fair, but the difference is I'm just saying the difference is I'm just wondering why people think he's going to mutiny against an organization when
I don't know about
he's
that.
finally gotten the chance to be a starter. I'm sure he loved being at a big club, but I'm sure he loves being the man at a club too. I'm sure that's a really fun distinction for him.
But right now he's
armband.
No, dude. Right now he's the man in St. Louis. But right now he's the man with a ton of goals that, in his mind, shouldn't have gone in because it never should have been shots in a team that's third from last. That's what it looks like as far as the grand stage. And these guys are crazy people. Defenders and goalies are crazy people in the best way, because when a goal goes in, it's freaking personal. It's oh my God. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. It's like it's
That's
on their sheet. It's on.
Right.
They have to wear it. It's like a sticker, and they don't want to be filled with stickers because that's goals against. So believe me, it's driving this guy crazy. And you know what? If it's not, I don't want him on the team. It should be driving him crazy.
To the point where you're literally thinking, I'm worried that he's not going to want to be on this team anymore?
Well, no. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'm saying, like, it's a legitimate worry. Don't discount Rocc. Don't discount.
That's what I'm saying. You think it's a legitimate worry?
I'm saying it's a legitimate criticism against the defense. The defense has been so bad that we're freaked out. We're worried about Berkey's mental health and wanting to stay in the city. Okay, I'm not saying that it's something that's possible, and it might happen. I'm just saying, think about how bad this defense is, that now we're all worried about the mental health of our goalie.
Get this man some toasted raviolis.
I hope he loves the food here.
And I understand that he's one of the earliest contracts that is up from the original group that was brought in. I understand the actual contractual reasons, and he had a huge season last year. He's having a huge season this year relative to goals against, and the metrics say that he's saving a crazy amount, and we can all see with our eyes that he's saving a crazy amount that should be going in. And so why wouldn't a team come and get him? But the phrasing of listen. This is how soccer works, people. People get bought up when they play well, and people make changes of scenery all the time. You saw it with a couple of players here in St. Louis City. I think that's another thing, is people need to calm down. The transactions are a completely different thing. That's one of the reasons I fell in love with soccer, is that you blink your eyes and 14 players on your team are different than they were the season before. That's one of the reasons I love this sport. It's a lot of fun, and that's one of the reasons I'm so excited, is because you get 3 acquisitions like this, just like that, just bam, July 18th, it all happens. I love that.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. So let's move on, because I only have so many minutes here. But I got to shout out Jaden Reid. That cross that he had to Klein was freaking gorgeous. He made a nice little move over there. It almost sat down 2 defenders. They were like, "What? Where'd he go?"
God, he was all over
it was really nice. I'm really excited to see the injection that Reid puts in some of that back line and some of that wing work. Again, I'm always going to compare it to what I know, and I know Manchester United, and he's the closest thing I've seen to Wan-Bissaka, and I like it. I like the excitement that Reid has kicked in there. I like the excitement that Klein has brought, and then we got a couple more signings as well. Now, we made mention to this last episode. The St. Louis City 2 has signed forward Lucas Dimitra, who is some sport royalty. Hello, you mentioned last week that is Pavel Dimitra's kid.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's a great move by them. Obviously, getting some St. Louis kids to into your academy is always a good move. We love that.
Yeah, St. Louis Blues Hall of Fame player Pavel Dimitra's son. He was added, and midfielder Mateo Kidd to the MLS Next Pro contract.
Who opened his scoring account in his first STL City 2 game. Congratulations to the St. Louis on that one. Makai Joyner continues to dominate, and City 2 is just rolling.
Yeah, they're awesome. The kid grew up in St. Louis, attended SLU from 17 to 2020, where he made 45 appearances and scored 2 goals for the Billikens. In 21, Kidd began his professional career at Chicago House AC in the NIS and he had 18 appearances in their first season, and then he signed with Chicago Fire FC2 for a next pro season and amassed 34 games during his time with that club. So, welcome home. Very cool for those two dudes. We'll see what they do to bolster an already great City 2 squad. So that's good news. They are just kicking butt and providing City with at least some sort of net with Reid and Klein and everybody else that we've been bringing up. Which brings us to the next match, and that's coming this Saturday. I was supposed to be there, but I now have to fly to L.A., so I'm going to miss yet another freaking match I had tickets to, the best tickets to. The Together Credit Union seats, those blue ones that are right there.
Oh, yeah, fantastic.
Dude.
We love Together Credit Union, too.
Best freaking seats in the house, Together Credit Union. Shout out to them. They were giving me some tickets that I can't use now, and that's got the little TCU food box with, by the way, the best fries. Gerard Kraft actually handed me my fries last time I was there, and they're the best fries in the universe, next to neck and neck, different style, neck and neck with my favorite Lion's Choice. But so this Saturday, 7:30 here in St. Louis at City Park, St. Louis will take on Vancouver. Vancouver is rolling. Vancouver is rolling. They're currently 6th place, and they had a little slip up about a month ago or so. But ever since then, White and everybody else in Vancouver has been on it. So this is going to be a real tough match. They're going for a better playoff spot in that top 4. They're 6th right now. They're only a point behind Portland in the West as far as 5th place goes, and they have a few games in hand on the top 4 with Colorado and LA Salt Lake and LAFC. So Vancouver has a lot to prove. They got a lot to play for. And guys, we don't have an E next to our name yet. An E would be eliminated. We don't have that yet.
They're far from that.
But we're getting closer when we're not winning against awful teams. And speaking of awful teams, after the 13th, we'll then end up playing Seattle, which is going to be no easy feat. But then we have Kansas City. Kansas City is absolute garbage.
That's the thing right there. I mean, that's the question, because that's the jump. That's the 3 games you have here between now in the Leagues Cup. You get those 3 games, 9 points available. If you can get 4 or 5 out of those 3 games, obviously it all depends on what Austin, which is the current 9 seed, does. As it stands right now, you're 8 points back from a wild card spot. So there's a lot of points still available. When you come back from the Leagues Cup, you'll have 9 games left to pick up whatever the gap is between you and Austin. So conceivably, best case scenario, they could be, around the 9 seed if they win all 3 of these games, but that's probably not going to happen if we're just being honest at this point. So 4 or 5 points keeps you in the game with being able to pick up a reasonable amount of points in those last 9 games once you get all 3 guys completely back, once you get your center backs and your defense healthy again. Maybe you get guys like Rasmus Alm back even. João Klaus gives you more depth up front. Can you stay close enough so that those last 9 games post-Leagues Cup, you're close enough to strike? That's going to be the goal from these next 3 games before you go off to the Leagues Cup.
Oh man, I like how you said keeps you there. Ugh. We're hoping for keeps you there.
Yeah,
I know.
It's honesty point, Moon. It's no more pie in the sky. It's just facts and hard math at this point. I'm sorry it's boring, but it is what it is.
Yeah. So in less than 2 weeks, we'll have 3 matches, all MLS matches. 2 of them are away, and we all know that our away record is just
stellar,
horrific,
nope,
shambolic.
I'm looking at something different.
Shambolic. So St. Louis takes on Vancouver at home here on Saturday. Then the following Saturday, Seattle in Seattle, and then it's Kansas City in Kansas City on that midweek game on the 20th. And then the Leagues Cup matches that you mentioned against Dallas, who again is also garbage. Not as bad garbage as Kansas City, but still not good. And then St. Louis takes on Juarez in the Leagues Cup. Both of those Leagues Cup matches, by the way, at City Park at home. So that's good.
Yeah, I don't care about that.
You don't care that they're at home? I care because
I don't care about the Leagues Cup.
Oh, who are you?
I'm an open cup radical is what I am, Moon.
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
I'm one of those. I'm sorry.
I forgot about the emotions.
I know.
I'm just trying to get some matches.
Listen, here's the thing.
Trying to get some money into the city.
No, I'm also a huge hypocrite. I'm going to watch and cover those games the exact same way that I watch and cover other city games, because the fact of the matter is what happens on the field for those games is going to affect what happens on the field for the 9 games after the Leagues Cup ends. And I care very much about the 9 games after the League Cups games, so I care very much how Jake Girdwood-Reich, Cedric Tuechert, and Marcel Hartel are fitting into the team. So that's why I actually do hope we have multiple League Cups games. I hope City is able to move on, because any time you can get in a competitive environment, obviously some of those teams are going to be different. Some of those teams are going to be better than the teams you'll play. Some of those teams aren't going to be as good, what have you. Not a lot of teams are actually, most all of them are going to be better. So it's a good grind to put those players through and put your team through to get better for those last 9 games of the season. So
yeah,
as much as I don't like the politics of the Leagues Cup, right now for City, I actually kind of love when it's falling and everything that you can do with getting these players right and getting these players acclimated to your system. I love that for City this year, because without that, I don't know if they'd be able to pick up points in those 3 or 4 weeks between the middle of July and the start of August. But now you get kind of a time to, work things out in a non-risky environment. And I think that's going to be huge for City this year.
Yeah, well, hopefully this next week or next 2 weeks is huge for City. So
get Hartel in town.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up there. From one emotional idiot, and on behalf of one emotional idiot and one hypocrite, thank you for being here, Soccer 101. Make sure you subscribe.
A new name for the podcast.
The idiot and hypocrite?
Yeah, exactly. Who doesn't want to listen to that?
Exactly. Well, thanks for being here. Hopefully St. Louis has plenty of goals over Vancouver here at City Park. We'll see you Saturday at City Park. 7:30 start, St. Louis v. Vancouver. Let's go, St. Louis. Get some goals! For crying out loud, please.